Hello guys. In today's episode we will talk about hypergamy. In April's edition of the Red Pill Monthly, Rollo and I discussed hypergamy and its effects on a society scale. To understand a woman, you must first understand hypergamy and its effects on the behavior exhibited by women in the micro and the macro scale. I highly advise people to watch that video if you haven't already, as Rollo and I talk in depth about the effects of hypergamy. This video is my take on it. Just a reminder though, this video is a part of a series. In the previous video I talked about female solipsism, which is an aspect of women you must keep in mind and try to understand how that interplays with hypergamy. If you have not watched that video, then you need to go back, watch it, and then come back to continue with this video. In very plain terms, hypergamy is the sexual reproductive strategy for women. It is the core instinct that drives them to get aroused and nest with a man, depending on that woman's current relationship state and the social dynamics at play in her life. Hypergamy, as it functions, ensures the acquisition of the best DNA donor and the survival of said DNA to the next generation. Therefore, at a base level, hypergamy is instinctual, and the behaviors exhibited by women are a result of this instinct. Don't forget that hypergamy, although it is an instinct, can often be overruled by higher brain functions, which may lead to women not cheating on their partners and staying faithful in their marriages, for example. The instinct is always present, but the woman's actions are not always dictated by that instinct. As men, we have nothing comparable to hypergamy, and we cannot theoretically understand how such an instinct plays out. I used to contemplate that hypergamy is perhaps the equivalent to the male teenage boner that men get when looking at an attractive woman. However, it is much more complex than that. A woman's likes and dislikes will vary with regards to what she perceives as an attractive man throughout her menstrual cycle and throughout her life. Hypergamy is fluid and is always changing. With men, there are almost universals that men will find attractive, good skin, good waist to hip ratio, and satisfactory facial symmetry. Our sexual reproductive strategy is opportunistic, therefore by evolutionary design a man will get aroused and fuck. If by evolutionary terms he is lucky, he will have a child with that woman. Men are always ready to go. On the other hand, even if women were to sleep with every man they came across, they wouldn't be ready to receive. So, as you can understand, with women, it is not that simple. The red pill goes on and on about alpha and beta males, and this is something that I do not necessarily agree with. At least, not to the extent that the red pill portrays it as, because I don't want masculinity to be defined by the attractiveness that men have on the opposite sex. But let's use the concept of the alpha male and just focus specifically on appearance for now. I would define alpha features to be that of muscularity, coarse facial characteristics, for example, a square jaw, being tall, and having a deep voice. In a sexually dimorphic species, we have obvious differences between the sexes in terms of appearance. When those differences in appearance are exaggerated in a man, he is deemed to be more attractive. This is why, when women are shown faces of more alpha men compared to men with less alpha features, they preferred the more alpha men when they were at the ovulatory part of their cycles, whereas when they were unable to conceive, they would choose less alpha men as being more attractive. That defining feature means that women pre-select men who are more prime genetic material when they're ovulating. The same woman will find one man more attractive over the other one, based on what stage she's running in her menstrual cycle. This is nature's way of ensuring the best genetic material is conceived, and when a woman is pregnant, she is surrounded by less threatening men. However, hypergamy doesn't stop there. You see, hypergamy, even if you do a very quick Google search, will be defined as the action of marrying a person of a superior caste or class. Studies of women on the macro scale have shown that women do not move down the classes but always marry equally or up on her social scale. A woman's sexual reproductive strategy allows her to look for better, always for better. This is an aspect that can be crudely defined as the woman being naturally a gold digger. However, this is obviously something that cannot be defined as an aspect that has been cultivated in our evolutionary past, because money did not appear in one form or another until organized civilizations took form. On the other hand, status was. Hypergamy would benefit from picking up on those subtle cues that a man of a higher status would demonstrate, such as confidence, being part of a large social circle, behavior that inspires respect from other men, and displays of material wealth in his possessions. In modern times, money of course helps a man in achieving all of those things, but as bank balances are not in plain sight, the hypergamy instinct would not be triggered if his presence does not reflect the amount of money he possesses. The social aspect of hypergamy is an aspect that many people focus on when defining it. However, on the micro scale, you might find women that are sleeping with men that are below their social standing. At that point, you must consider if 1. Is that woman happy with her current partner? And 2. Does that woman perceive that man's social status as higher than is perceived by others? Also, when it comes to younger men, women look for the potential of the man to rise in social standings. Therefore, do not get confused with simplistic ideas that the actual sexual marketplace value is all that counts. Younger men have low sexual marketplace value when compared to older men because they haven't had enough time to work and rise in the social standing. But women can and do invest as their hypergamy dictates such investment when it comes to younger men. Just imagine that every girl dreams about marrying her prince in the hope that the prince will turn to a king. That is also why there are so many failed marriages, as there are many princes and there's only one king. I will now summarize what has been covered so far. I have explained that hypergamy dictates the different levels of attraction women have towards men, depending on where she is on her cycle. During ovulation, women go for what the red pill community would deem alpha fucks. I also explained that on a social scale, women will always look to pair up or equal to their perceived social standing. Money definitely plays a role, but so does social standing. The social standing is perceived by women and is of course instinctual. It is where the PUA community employs all those tactics in order to trick the hypergamous nature of women in order to respond to them. It is why women think that these men cheat when it comes to the game and are hated for it, because they're playing on the base hypergamous nature of women altogether. Now, let's talk about hypergamy over time. I'm not going to list it in phases with titles much like Rollo has done in the past, because I don't have the time and Rollo has done a much better job than I have on this, so simply buy his second book. I would rather explain it as a story of the average woman who starts being sexually active at the age of about 16. I will describe her typical transition, let's say, and how her hypergamous nature evolves through time. This girl is not a bad-looking girl, but she's not exceptionally good-looking either. But that does not matter because she will fuck and break many hearts in her path. From the time that this girl is sexually active, and with the exception of the few boyfriends that she may have until she leaves home to go to college or university, this girl will want to stretch her hypergamous muscles. She might have a relationship at high school, perhaps one with her sweetheart, who is a football player or a rugby player, but that won't last because she wants to try what's out there. Once she's at university, she will pass through a myriad of cocks. Anyone that she will find attractive, she will sleep with. She needs to experiment and learn herself what is out there in the world. What she's looking for is that alpha cock, but she cannot recognize who it is, so she sleeps with mainly good-looking guys and has mostly physical relationships with people and no mental connection. She doesn't even consider a mental connection at this point. All she wants to do is ride the cock carousel, and that's what she's doing. She will cheat on the boyfriends that she will have, and she will excuse such behavior in her head because she's young and she's simply experimenting. This girl will fuck a lot of cock during these years, and she will enjoy every minute of it. Not every cock will of course be the same, but she will sleep with guys that take her breath away, always thinking that there is something better though around the corner. Plus, she quickly realizes that the guys that fuck the best don't usually stick around long enough, so she learns to be okay with that. Those party years continue until in essence, she realizes that her attractiveness starts to go down. At that point, when she sees the younger and fitter women take her share of men, she starts to look elsewhere. She starts dressing more appropriately, behaving better, and starts looking for an alpha to settle with. She quickly realizes that she cannot get an alpha to settle with her because she has been used up, and there are already better looking girls for guys such as those guys out there. Then she realizes that she needs a good guy to be there for her and start a family with. She reaches the beat-a-buck side of the equation. She might at this point have children from all the random nights of fucking around, but she will demand her new man to take care of those children too and accept her for all her mistakes. She will find such a man, but despite the fact that this plays directly into the dualistic nature of her sexual strategy, she will never be emotionally and sexually satisfied because, let's face it, she has tried better. The man she's with never gave her tingles down in her private parts like other men did. Her children are now getting old, she's financially secure, and does she really need to be unhappy all the time for her family? Enter divorce and the lookout for more men. And there are much more men around. Some have been divorced themselves, some are on the lookout. At this point, her makeup becomes quite eccentric, her clothes become more revealing again, as if she was 20 all over again. She will look for men and she will sleep with them, but she will rarely form relationships with them. Most of them are simply filling a hole in her heart, but we all know where the real empty hole is. She continues to look for men that will give her the tingles. However, those men are nowhere to be found and are not interested in her anymore. She's old and she's used up. She will find men because men are thirsty at any age, but very few women will find a man that totally satisfies them as they did when they were younger. In the example I listed before, I described more or less 3 phases that women go through. The first one are the party years, where she seeks as many alpha partners as her looks and circumstances can allow her. The second part is the point where she realizes her looks are rapidly declining and she needs to settle with a beta provider. The third and final part is her getting reinterested in satisfying her desires with alpha men because her biological imperative has been satisfied. You must understand that this varies, and it does not always play out this way. A woman will not always act out on her desires and may find an alpha man and settle down with. And she might also stick around with her beta provider. The circumstances do vary. However, with no social constraints as we are seeing now in society, these scenarios are fairly common. The instinctual nature of hypergamy cannot be denied. You must appreciate that at all points in a woman's life, a woman will always be on the lookout for a better man than the man that she has available to her. A woman's hypergamous instinct is always driving her towards men who she considers as having alpha qualities. However, as with per her solipsistic nature, a woman may act towards those instincts or not. She may act and hide it, or she may take the high road. Chances are, if there are no repercussions perceived in a woman's mind, she will act towards them, especially if there is perceived genuine interest from the point of view of a more alpha male than her current partner. This is the part of the nature of women that allows for a lot of the cheating to take place, and the unstable relationships and the multiple divorces taking place from what used to be stable marriages. This goes back to solipsism and the changes in the social, cultural and religious norms for women. There has been a huge shift, partly because of equality, partly because of feminism, and mainly because of gynocentrism, which is happening on a wider scale. This allows for the hypergamous nature of women to act out in plain sight, whereas previously it would have been hidden. This is the way the nature of woman has always been, but is now causing disgust and the distancing of many of today's young men. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much for listening, and take care.